Are you the fanatic we're looking for? Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is the only interactive and dynamic mock draft simulator. Dynamic means that the picks from one mock draft will influence the players that team selects in the next mock draft. This can be done with a first-round challenge. This can be done with a second-round challenge. This will be done with any mock draft from the Draft Professor. In addition, the Draft Professor has rank players functionality, allowing you to rank players and build your own big board and then compare your board to that of other users at the Draft Professor. In addition, the Draft Professor has draft a team functionality. This allows 2 or more users to snake draft a team of 22 players from the rookie pool, and then you can debate which players you like at which position and why. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. It's bright and early on a Saturday morning. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Anthony, how are you doing this morning?
Good, man. Happy to be here bright and early with you guys. Although I don't know how bright it is for some of you. It's snowing where I am, but nevertheless, happy to be here.
Yeah. So, Brian, how close are you to the fires?
Like an hour-ish away, so not that close. I'm not having any issues where I'm at right now.
Cool. Glad that you are safe. So, yeah, we've got a couple of us underneath snow. That would be Anthony. Anthony and I are both east of the Mississippi, and Brian is on the left coast.
Yep.
So, again, good morning to everybody watching. We're going to be doing some running back big boards. So, Anthony and Brian, we're going to spend a few minutes going over their running back big boards. There's at least one new name because I was adding a player for Anthony right before the podcast so that he could add him to the rankings on the draft simulator. So looking forward to hearing about a new name. But why don't we go ahead and kick this off? So both of you have the same number 1 running back. So Brian, do you want to kick off Ashton Jeanty?
Yeah. So I think that everybody, even our group chat and just everybody out there generally has Jeanty as the number 1 running back. I think that's probably 98% of people out there have Jeanty as number 1. He's the best back in the class. He's, I think, probably the only running back that gets consensus first round grade as well. I know some other people have other running backs with first round grades, but I'm pretty sure he's the only one that has consensus first round grade. I've actually recently, because I'm not a huge comp guy, but recently I've kind of thought about it, and the guy I kind of comped him to a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer per se, but I think just as a running back style, I've kind of comped him a little bit to an Emmitt Smith. Thinking about it, because he's shorter, he's not super fast, but he's quick, he's explosive. He's got really good contact balance. I mean, we've all seen the clips. Even against Penn State, there was one play where they met him, I think, a yard past the line of scrimmage, and he broke 8 tackles and got a first down or something like that. It's just his contact balance is insane. As a receiver, I think he's probably a better receiver than Emmitt was, but overall as a running back, I think it's kind of a similar comp in a way. Because he has a history in high school. He played wide receiver, and it shows in his play. He's really good on the backfield. He can run routes. His blocking is improving. It's not, it's not all pro caliber or Pro Bowl level, whatever anything like that, but it's still improving. He's showing he's working at it. He's not super fast, but his speed's okay. He's not going to rip off, 70 yards runs, 60-yard runs, but he's going to get you a ton of 20-yard runs, 30-yard runs in the NFL. Trying to think of anything else I can say, but I mean, he's just a really good running back.
Cool. And Anthony, what do you have on Jeanty?
Yeah, a lot of what Brian said. I think it's the contact balance. I think it's the quickness, the shiftiness. He's also a tough and sturdy runner. He can run between the tackles, be physical. I think the receiver production was down mainly just because like they didn't want him to be a receiver because he's just such a good runner. Like it wasn't a liability. It's just not how they wanted to play. They wanted to just force you to have to deal with just how good of a runner he is. So I certainly think when he gets to the NFL, he can definitely add receiver upside on third downs. There's questions about who he played. We saw the Oregon game. I don't think competition is that big of a concern. Yes, it'll be tougher in the NFL, but I also think defenses aren't going to be basically gearing their entire game plan towards him at the next level. So I have no really serious concerns about that. Clear first round pick. I would honestly be comfortable taking him like in the 8 to 12 range. I think he's that good.
Cool. So for anybody watching the podcast, Anthony's list is the one on the left, and Brian's list is the one on the right. So what we're going to do for this point forward is Anthony will do his number 2 back. Brian goes to his number 2 back, and they're going to each talk about the guys on their board. But if you're only listening, they're not necessarily talking about the same guy right next to each other. But Anthony, you want to talk about the player that is the Nick Singleton, the second running back on your board?
Yes. So Nick Singleton, who is one of more of the divisive running backs, it feels like. I have seen people rank him even lower than where Brian has him. I just think he is just so unbelievably explosive. He's 6 foot, 227 pounds. So he has all the appearance of a power back, but the play style of this incredibly explosive, fast runner. Vision's great, able to burst through the holes that open up for him so well. A tremendous receiver. Doesn't have the biggest route tree in the world, but he has soft hands. He's able to high point passes. It's really just like he's just such a special athlete, and it shows in everything that he does. I think one of the knocks, but also one of the positives, is he's been splitting carries with Kaytron Allen this season. So while he doesn't have the amazing production that Ashton Jeanty has, he also doesn't have as much tread on the tires. He just hasn't been used as much. So, you can look at that however you want to look at that. He's not incredibly shifty per se. He's not really going to like juke people out of their shoes. That's not really his style. Also, ball security is a little bit of a concern. But I just think he's just so it's a little bit of a cheat comp, but I do think there are Saquon Barkley elements to just how he matches size and speed and athleticism. I'm all over him. I think he's exactly what NFL teams want in a running back. I would be very comfortable with taking him at the bottom of the first round, even with such a deep running back class.
Okay, and Brian, you want to talk about your number 2 running back, Caleb Johnson?
Yeah, so just a quick note I have, as people can watching this right now, they can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys with second round grades. They're all kind of pretty close together, so it's not like this huge variation. But anyway, but with Caleb, so he's a guy who kind of came out of nowhere kind of this year in a sense. He was kind of sharing carries last year, and he was okay. He's sort of a little bit here and there, but he wasn't really anybody that was on high up on draft boards coming into this year. But he kind of just took off this year. He's got kind of ideal size for NFL at 6 foot 225. He's got good power. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's got really good vision. He's got, for his size, his feet are really quick. He'll make a couple cuts and be really quick cuts, finding the hole, and then he'll just burst through the hole. Really good explosiveness. I think I said good hands out of the backfield, but hasn't really developed his route tree per se because Iowa didn't really ask their guys to do a lot as far as receiving, as far as the running backs out of the backfield. So that's more of a how do you say it? Like an unknown with him, because he didn't show on a film, but doesn't mean he can't do it. That's something that's kind of Iowa. That's kind of always big with me. With just because someone doesn't show something on film doesn't mean they can't do it. But if they show it that they can't do it, then that's different. But he just hasn't shown on film. But I think he can do it. He can develop it. Improving pass blocker, of course, gives good effort, has strength in the pass pro game. He's, been able to knock some guys back a little bit too. Still needs improvement, of course, but like I said, really good vision. Just able to get quick in the hole, explosive. He's got really good speed, actually, for a guy as big as him as he is as well. I think he's going to get taken, and he's going to be a number one back right away in the NFL.
Cool. And Anthony, do you want to talk about Omarion Hampton? And before we do that, so a couple clarifications on the color codes. So you see both of them have Ashton Jeanty, and it's a blue color. That's a round one grade. So the green color on Anthony's, are you suggesting that Omarion Hampton could go round one?
Yeah, so that's basically, I think Singleton and Hampton are guys that I would say could go in the 30s, basically. So like, or like late 20s, like 25 to 35 range would be where I'd have them about. They could sneak into the first round or like very early day two guys.
Okay. So what do you want to say about Omarion Hampton?
Yeah, so Omarion Hampton, it's unfortunate that we have Ashton Jeanty in a way, because I think if Ashton Jeanty didn't exist, like, we'd all be super excited about Omarion Hampton, but he just hasn't had the spotlight on him this year. But he's got the frame and size you want, 6 foot, 220, really is so patient as a runner, and that helps him so much because he's able to hit holes so hard, but he's more of the physical guy. He is going to run through you. He runs with physicality. He's able to finish runs, falls forward, that kind of player. He is really a north and south guy. He also has receiver potential. Wasn't a huge part of his game, but he's shown that he can make catches out of the backfield. As a north-south guy, doesn't have that elite explosiveness, but for a 220-pound back, I don't think it's a liability. I think it's just fine. Same thing with like his top speed. He's not going to outrun people every single game, but I think it's fine enough for the NFL level. He's just so powerful. I wrote down like a Kareem Hunt-esque kind of player. I think that's sort of the player you're thinking about. I think he's going to be very valuable, particularly in the the third and shorts, the fourth and shorts, the goal line situations. Like, he's going to excel, and he can be a touchdown machine at the next level.
Cool. And then Brian's next running back is Travion Henderson, and the purple color represents a second-round grade. So you have a second-round grade in Travion Henderson as well as the other running backs in purple, Brian?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what do you want to tell everybody about Travion Henderson?
Yeah. So actually, I'm in the process of writing my final running back rankings. But something I've noted about him in there was that he's kind of like your modern day running back, what the NFL is looking for. He can do everything basically. He can run the ball, carry the ball, he can block, he can catch the ball. He's got good hands out of the backfield. They use him a lot as a receiver. He's got the size that you like in the NFL. He's confirmed 5'10", 214. He's really explosive. He's really fast, actually, too. He kind of burst onto the field as a freshman, and then he had a hairline fracture in his sophomore year, and that kind of lingered into last year. So he wasn't as explosive this year. He looks healthy, so he looks like he's got all his explosiveness back. Good vision. Just kind of like pretty much everything the NFL looks for a running back. Again, the only question is really going to be his medicals and make sure that hairline fracture is okay. And he's had a couple other nicks and bumps here and there too. That's kind of affected him too. I believe this year he's been 100% healthy though. But in the last 2 years, sophomore year, junior year, he had some bumps and nicks and bumps and stuff like that. They just want to make sure he's good to go. He's healthy. But yeah, explosive, fast. He used a weapon on the backfield. Just like I said, what the NFL looks for.
Cool. And then Anthony's next running back, ironically, is the same, Travion Henderson. So, Anthony, what do you want to add about the Ohio State running back?
Yeah, I think Brian and I have a very similar view on him. Very much the size, speed, blend that you want in an NFL running back. I think the footwork is just so special. You saw it yesterday against Texas. He's so shifty and nimble as a runner. I think the pass blocking is like my biggest gripe with him, and that's really the only thing that I think would limit him being a complete three down back. But other than that, I think he has all the physical tools that you want. So yeah, take him second round and feel pretty good about his chances of being a feature back.
Okay. And then, Brian, you have one of my favorites at number 4, Devin Neal from Kansas. So what do you want to tell everybody about Devin Neal?
Yeah, I've been a Devin Neal guy since probably 2022 when he was just starting to flash and show some stuff when he was sharing the ball with Daniel Highshaw. But yeah, so he's similar kind of guy, like where he's got similar ideal NFL size, 5'11", 215 listed. I don't have an official size on him, but so yeah, he's explosive. He's quick. He's got really good speed. I wouldn't say, I don't think he's 4.4 speed, but like 4.45, 4.48, something like that speed. But yeah, explosive, really good vision, really quick feet too. Actually, he'll juke guys out a little bit here and there. He'll spin some guys and stuff like that. Really good at catching the ball out of the backfield. Pass blocking is okay. Still needs work, of course, like most running backs coming out of college. But yeah, he's the guy who's going to come into the NFL. He's probably going to be he can be an every down back, really. I think probably ideal to have a power back behind him because the power's not great, but it's okay. Contact balance is okay as well. But just really an explosive, fast type guy. He's really good in space.
Okay, and then the next player up. So, Anthony, I believe the next player is Quinshon Judkins, the other Ohio State running back.
Yes, Ohio State had a very dynamic duo this year, which we kind of expected. Judkins is interesting because I was saying before we started, coming into the year, I thought Judkins was a potential first-round guy. I had him above Trevion Henderson. Now, obviously, that's flipped. But I still think Judkins can win in a variety of ways as a runner, I think. I think he can win physically. He can break tackles, bounce off of people. He can also win with quickness. He has the burst and has the acceleration to get past slower defenders. The contact balance is there. He has the nastiest stiff arm in this entire draft. It is a sight to behold every time he pulls it out. And I think he has upside as a pass catcher. Trevion, I think, was more of the receiving down back for Ohio State this year. But I think Judkins has the ability. He's not Judkins' biggest thing with him. He's not an overly twitchy, elusive guy. I think also his decision making as a runner he doesn't quite commit to holes as much as I think he should. So those are my two big things with him. But for me personally, you'll see it in my rankings. Like the top 5, I think, are guys that I think are 3 down backs, and that's why they are in the first 2 rounds. And then now we're going to start to get to guys that I think need a sort of tandem or 1-2 punch kind of thing. But this Judkins is still in that he can play 3 downs and be a lead back for a variety of teams.
Okay, and Brian, the next running back on your list is Omarion Hampton, I believe.
Yeah, so a lot of similar. I view him similar to a lot of things that Anthony was saying. He's a power back, north-south runner. He's really, really explosive. Not his straight line speed's not great. Long speed's not that great. It's okay, but he's really explosive, power runner. Again, like Anthony said, he'll get you those 3rd and shorts, those 4th and shorts, and stuff like that. Not much out of the backfield, but he's okay. Pass blocking is okay. I think he can be a little stiff sometimes as far as changing direction and making cuts and stuff. It takes him a few steps to gather his feet to change direction. So I think that's going to hurt him a little bit in the NFL. He might again need to be in a 1 and 2 backfield type of thing where he has another back that does the 3rd and shorts or 3rd and long, and in the pass game type stuff, and or if they're looking for some outside runs and stuff like that. But he's a power runner. He'll inside run. He'll get you those gap runs. He's this guy who's basically like a one cut runner and go up the field. And he's just a power runner. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. He's got a bit of wear and tear on him. The interesting thing, actually, I was noticing at the end of the season, I was doing some reviewing of him, is he has the exact same. He has the exact same yards per carry average this year and last year, and the exact same rushing touchdowns. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I like him a lot too, though. Still,
cool. So the next player is Anthony Mario Anderson from Memphis. So I know this is one of your guys, right, Anthony?
Yeah, and this is it's probably what a lot of people have been waiting for at this point, because I genuinely don't know anyone that has him even in like their top 12. But I'm a big fan of what he brings to the table. I think the first thing you see is just such a motor as a runner. He's willing to just hit you in the face, and he is not going to give up on any run that he is a part of. Such impressive leg drive as a runner. I think he makes really good cuts in space. He doesn't have the long speed that you would love. He's not like the most, quick first step kind of guy, but I think I think he's a very good athlete. There's an insane hurdle over a defender that you could find when he was at South Carolina in 2023. So you can look up the clip. He made a very impressive hurdle over a defender. So he has athleticism. This year he had the fourth most receptions of any running back in the FBS. I think it was like 52. I didn't write the number, something like that. And he also only had 2 drops. So pretty reliable as a receiver. I think he's also a willing and able pass blocker. He's not afraid to get physical. Even though I will say he's only measured, he's at the Hula Bowl right now. He only measured 5'8", 200 pounds, which is not ideal size. But if he can bulk up maybe even like 5-10 pounds and still not lose any of those ability to make those cuts. Also, big thing for me, he had 18 rushing touchdowns this season, 0 fumbles. So reliable, the ball security is there. I do think, again, because he doesn't bring that, super explosiveness, I do think he would need sort of a quicker counterpart. But if you put him in a zone scheme and an inside zone scheme, I think he could be a pretty underrated talent for sure.
Cool. And Brian, I think the next running back on your list is Nick Singleton.
Yep. So yes, I see some of the things that that Anthony was saying about him. He is explosive. He's fast. He can catch the ball in the backfield. Penn State just did weird stuff with him this year. They use him like out of the backfield a lot, like as like a receiver, like this. I can't think of the word for it. They didn't really use him as much as a running back as they should have. They would mostly give it to what's his name? The other guy, Allen, yeah, Kaytron Allen, yeah. Even though Allen's like slow, like 4.6 slow, but anyway, so yeah, like Anthony said, he's fast, he's explosive, he can catch the ball at backfield. His vision's okay, it's not bad. It could be better, but it's not bad. I think it's just and it just doesn't have a super lot of wear and tear in his body, so the NFL will like that for sure. But yeah, I like him a lot. Like I said, it's just like I have so many running backs that I have similar views on that I like. So, but yeah, he's a really good player. I think he'll come to the NFL and he'll be a starter day one, basically. So yeah.
Cool. And then Anthony, your next running back is Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, so I'm definitely on the lower end of the spectrum for most people for Caleb Johnson. Brian talked about it. He definitely he looks the part, has the strong, thick build, incredibly smooth for a runner of his size. I wrote down almost like an animal, like a gazelle or something like that, in the way that he just sort of just glides and just looks so good as a runner. Able to finish through contact, able to break tackles. He has the burst through open holes. I think for me, just the biggest thing, and I value this a lot because I just feel like the NFL really looks for this. He doesn't offer a ton as a receiver. I don't think he's like not capable of being a receiver, but it didn't. I haven't really seen it as much as I would like. I also think if holes don't open, Iowa's offensive line I don't think gets enough credit, and that's not me trying to take away how good Caleb was this year, but a lot of holes were opened up for him. So in the NFL, if he goes to a team that is not opening those holes consistently for him, I do have some reservations about how much he'll be able to just create and find space and then be able to accelerate. So that's kind of where my concerns are. But I definitely see the upside with him. Definitely somebody that can be a big first and second down feature back, I think, is where I would peg him to be.
Okay, and then number 7 for Brian is RJ Harvey. And before Brian introduces RJ Harvey, one of the things I'm going to point out is we've had several other podcasters do running back rankings, and I think there's, let's say, 3 polarizing running backs where if you're checking somebody's running back rankings, I would definitely look to see where they have Harvey. I would look to see where they have Taj Brooks. And then Caleb Johnson is the other one. And you can see, like, Caleb Johnson is already, Brian and Anthony have a range on him, right? So, like, from 2 to 7. So that's just something I've noticed as I've watched plenty of podcasters give running back big boards. So one of them is RJ Harvey. I have seen RJ Harvey as high as RB2. Right. But just pay attention to where people have him because I think he's very polarizing. But Ryan, what do you want to tell us about RJ Harvey?
Yeah, similar to Devin Neal, he's been kind of one of my guys since probably 2022 when they, interesting enough, UCF had like a 3 running back headed backfield where they rotated through 3 running backs, and they just ran the ball. But yeah, he's explosive. He's about, I think, officially measured 5'8", 201, so similar size to Mario Anderson, but he's thick. He's a thick 5'8", 201. He's all muscle, like they used to call muscle hamster or whatever it was. He's fast. He's explosive. He's, like I said, he's quick. He'll spin guys. He'll put a bunch of moves on guys. He'll escape. How do you call it? Like tackles in the backfield. Like the guys will have him dead rights. He'll stop him. He'll juke him. He'll spin him. Whatever. He'll take what looks like a 1 or 2 or 3 yard loss. He'll turn into like a 3 or 4 yard gain. Not super powerful, but he's got pretty good power for his size. He's got good. You can catch the ball in the backfield. Good, really good hands. He wasn't asked to run a lot of routes by UCF, but I think it's something that I think he can do it fine. Pass blocking is kind of could be better, but he gives effort, of course. That's why I have him so high. Because as long as guys give effort, I'll give them a plus for that. Just because that tells me that they're at least trying their best. They want to do better at it. They want to work at it. Like I've said before, most college running backs coming out, their pass blocking is not NFL level yet. Most of them, because it's not really asked to do it. They don't really practice as much. But yeah, like I said, he's just a really talented player. He's had, I think, 2 or 3 years with 1,000 yards in a row. He's just a really solid player. I think he come in. He probably want to put him in a tandem backfield, but he's just really explosive and fast, and he'll get you a lot of big plays.
Yeah. So one of the things I just noticed as we're going through, you both have Kyle Monanganyi at 8, and you have RJ Harvey like right next to Kyle Monanganyi. So Anthony, what do you want to tell us about Kyle Monanganyi?
Yeah, Monanganyi is just kind of he's so fun to watch. I've heard the comparison from other people, so I'm not taking credit for it. But he is a human bowling ball, basically. He just bounces off of people and is able to just be so physical and able to push through and finish runs. He's been tremendously productive for Rutgers, and I think it's been a perfect sort of offense for him and his skill set. Constantly keeps his lower half moving as a runner. I do think he also makes really good cuts as a runner. That said, he's not a huge laterally quick player, not overly explosive, pretty much a non-factor as a receiver. That's not his game. His game will just be to just come out and hit you in the mouth, and I think that's a valuable thing. So yeah, and this is, again, we're in this range now where I think it's a lot of guys that are going to be either like, the lead back in a committee or like a change of pace guy in a committee, part of like a 1-2 tandem kind of thing. So if you put Monangai on a team with another receiving focused back, I think it's a solid 1-2 tandem that you could have.
Well, and Brian, what do you want to add?
Yeah, some similar things to Anthony. I think his vision's really good. He's really how do you put it? I guess you can say slippery in a way, just getting through the hole, finding those little cracks, turning his body, if it's a small little crack, whatever, because that Rutgers offensive line was not that good. There were a couple okay guys, like Holland Thomas is okay, but he's big, huge stiff guy. So, he did more for the offensive line, I guess. Like, he made the offensive line look better than it was, actually, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, he's got really good power. Like Anthony said, he's like a bowling ball basically out there. He's got really good contact balance power. He'll run guys over. He'll knock them down. Again, not super shifty, but he's got some decent feet. His hands look okay. He wasn't asked to catch the ball backfield, like Anthony said. Probably not going to be a great backfield guy. His upper body looks maybe a little tiny bit stiff, but he can probably catch some dump offs and stuff like that. Pass pro, the only thing I have a little bit of a question on him because he wasn't asked to do it a super lot. But when he was, he did okay. But yeah, I agree with Anthony. I think you put him in a tandem backfield, and he'll probably still get you like 1,000 yards or close to 1,000 yards. Just a good overall player.
And then Brian, do you want to cover DJ Giddens, who is number 9 on your board?
Yeah, so DJ Giddens he's an interesting player. He's explosive and he's fast. He's kind of got this long body kind of thing, but he's really good. He's got really good hands out of the backfield. He's a big guy. He's got really good vision. He's really slippery for his size. Do I have confirmed size on? Yeah, I do. He's just over 6 foot, 216. But like I said, he's really slippery. When he comes to the third level, he's really able to juke and spin DBs, actually, surprisingly, for his size. He just even though he's that big of a guy, he gets on DBs and he can spin them out. He can stiff arm them. He'll juke them. He's really slippery, like I said like 5 times already. I just really like him. I think that Kansas State offense kind of helps makes him look a little bit better than he is, but I still think he's a really good back. I think he's just a really good back. I think he'll come to the NFL, be a starter. He can get you 1,000 yards. I think I said good hands in the backfield and stuff like that. I'd like to see him pass pro, at the All-Star games, see how he looks in All-Star games as pass pro and stuff like that, because he wasn't asked to do it much at Kansas State since they did barely pass the ball. But yeah, like I said, I like him a lot. I think he's a guy who's going to probably get drafted probably a little bit later than he should, and he'll kind of surprise some people.
Cool. And then, Anthony, you have RJ Harvey at number 9.
Yeah. So a lot of what Brian talked about is so fast and explosive. I think he's one of the few true home run hitter backs in this class. I don't, for as really athletic and nimble and sort of twitchy that a lot of these guys are, I don't think there's a lot of true home run hitter can take a run 50, 60 yards down the field. RJ Harvey's that. Great vision and burst through the holes. He was second to Ashton Jeanty in runs of 10 or more yards. One of the better receiving backs in this class as well. It really just comes down to will he be able to handle physical football, physical NFL play? I don't see a lot of like breaking tackles and contact balance from him. That's not really his game. He doesn't really hold up in pass protection. So I think that's where the reservations are. But in terms of just pure playmaking running backs, he's got to be pretty high on that list. So, yeah, definitely a guy that I would want as a explosive option in my offense.
Okay, so let's do number 10, Ollie Gordon for Brian.
Yeah, so coming into the season, I think Ollie Gordon is number 1 or number 2 running back. He just went off crazy last year. He's just this interesting shaped guy. He's 6'1", listed at 6'1", 215, but he's like all arms and legs. So he's got these really long arms, really long legs, this like long body. But he's like he runs like a I think Anthony mentioned another player on like a gazelle. He's got this long body, just smooth and stuff like that. But I don't know. So he had some sort of weird, I don't know, something happened with him this year. Some people think he got added a bunch of weight and he looked too heavy. It's possible. He just looked off this year. I don't know what it was. He had a bad offseason where he got arrested for, I think, a DUI or something like that. And then just since then, it just the whole year's been weird. He's had a couple 100-yard games, but like, I don't know. Just like I said, he's been off this year. I don't know what it is, but off last year's film, like he was just really good. He's just really good vision, good hands at the backfield. He would get down he would get the outside and he would just blow down the sideline. He's a big long kid. He would just kind of glide, kind of like that. Not saying the same player, but that kind of that Randy Moss running style, running vibe kind of way, because he had these really long legs, but like he's fast. He kind of glides and flies down the field. Like it's a good vision when last year, this year just seems off. I just want to see him on the make sure his medical's okay. Maybe he had an injury he was dealing with or something this year. I'm not sure. But off last year's film, he was really good. Like as a good vision, speed, explosiveness, smooth runner. Good hands. Pass blocking could have been a lot better. It showed some improvement this year, but I think his pass blocking still needs a lot of work. But I think if you get the 2023 version of Ollie Gordon, you're going to get a really good back. It just needs everything to check out with him.
Okay, and then Anthony, you want to cover Bashul Tutin, your number 10 back?
Yeah. So Bashul Tutin, super impressive the way that he is able to follow his blocks, attacks running lanes, and then able to have contact balance to be able to break tackles. I think he really is going to be a nice player in a zone scheme. It just a lot of his skill set matches what teams look for. Also really effective as a receiver, particularly in the screen game. I think he adds a lot there as well. Also showed the ability to make defenders miss past the line of scrimmage as well. He's not overly explosive as a runner. He is more of that physical guy. He doesn't really take runs. It doesn't really bounce runs outside as much as you would hope for. So that's definitely something he can improve on. And I don't think it's a vision problem. I think it's just he doesn't feel like he has that athletic ability to do so. Also ball security, big concern with him, 4 fumbles this year. So I think there's a lot of physical tools that you like, and he shows the football IQ that you want to see. But are there athletic limitations to him is kind of where I'd be concerned. So I think he's a guy that definitely can work his way to being in a committee kind of setting.
Okay, so Brian, I think to prevent me from bouncing to screen a lot, what I'm going to have you do is do 11 to 15, but you don't need to go into as much detail as we did on the top 10, but kind of call out your 11 to 15. And then Anthony, I will flip the slides so that you can talk about your 11 through 15.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So 11, I have Taj Brooks. He's a really fun player to watch. I love watching Taj Brooks. He reminds me a little bit of I'm forgetting his name. Of shoot, no, I'm forgetting his name. He played at Alabama, then he played in, I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. He played in Green Bay. I'm forgetting his name now. I'm forgetting his name. He played in Green Bay for a few years. He played at Alabama. He got some weight issues.
Eddie Lacy.
Eddie Lacy. I don't know why I forgot his name. Sorry. Thanks. He reminds me a lot of Eddie Lacy. Not as explosive as coming out of college as Eddie Lacy was, but he has some Eddie Lacy to him because he's like 230-ish, I think, or 228 officially, 5'9", 228. Big dude, strong dude, powerful dude, but he's got some really quick feet for his size. I'm not saying he's got like Ashton Jeanty feet or anything like that, or Devin Neal feet, but for his size, his feet are really, really quick. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Again, not a huge threat out of the backfield. Pretty good pass blocker. Obviously, he's not super fast. Speed's just kind of okay, but pretty good vision, like I said. But yeah, just really good feet, quick feet. He'll make some linebackers miss and stuff like that here and there. Again, probably a guy that you probably want in a tandem backfield, but I mean, I think he could probably knock out 1,000 yards for you. His quick feet really impressed me, actually, how quick they are. Bishop Tootin, similar. I kind of view him similar to Anthony does. He's actually kind of been one of my guys for a couple of years as well. He's also dealt with some injuries recently, so that kind of hurts a little bit too. This year, he had some injuries this year, and he's got a decent, kind of a lot of wear and tear on his body. So I hope his body can hold up. I believe he was a JC guy, and he's had a number of 1,000-yard rushing season, a number of carries on his body. I just hope his body's not breaking down, and it's just, he just got nicked up this year. But yeah, quick, explosive. He can catch the ball in the backfield. Just a really solid player. Judkins, power runner, kind of some similar stuff that Anthony said. I think his ankles are a bit stiff. He's not really a creative guy. He's kind of like, and his vision's not great. Sometimes he'll run as the back of his offensive lineman. He kind of just needs. He's one of those guys that needs like kind of in a gap scheme and needs like kind of like a big hole for him. Basically, he needs a really good offensive line in front of him. Basically, that just open a hole and he just runs through the hole and he runs over dudes and stuff like that. Not really a threat out of the backfield much. He's got some okay hands, but not really much of a threat. Pass pro is okay. It could be a solid power running back again in a tandem backfield. Jarquez Hunter, I really liked him off last year. And then I think last year, he had 900 yards. This year, he had over 1,000 yards. Just a really underrated dude. Do I have official numbers on him? I don't think I do. Oh, I do. He's 5'9", 204, so good size. Really quick, explosive type guy. Can catch the ball backfield again. A pretty good out of the backfield threat. Not super powerful, but he's got some decent contact balance and some okay power and stuff like that. Dylan Sampson, of course, power runner, just got good size, not super huge. Listed at 5'11", 200, so a little small for a power back, but I like his skills. He's a really good running back, really good vision too. He's got a really good juke move. I've noticed on film sometimes, especially for his play style, and just a guy. I think if he plays in an more, I think he could show more in an NFL style offense. Since that Tennessee offense is kind of weird, but I like him too.
Okay, and I would actually add Dylan Sampson as a polarizing running back. You're going to see people kind of have him where Brian does, and I have seen plenty of people that have Dylan Sampson top 5 kind of thing. So, Anthony, I will now flip slides. And I got to make sure I find. Okay. So, Anthony, can you go through your 11 through 19? And then, Brian, I will flip to you, and you can go through the rest of your board. So, at this point, I think we're going through Anthony's magenta color, which I believe is around 4 or 5 grade on all of these guys, Anthony.
Yeah. So this is these are around 4 or 5 guys, and this will round out the running backs that I have watched at this point that I have in my top 175. So Devin Neal at 11. Brian talked about him a bit. I think he has really good footwork and lateral ability in space. That's one of the things that I think jumps out on tape. Really good vision. And I wrote down, it almost feels like his mind and his body are like true one. Like they are so in sync, and it shows how he runs and how he plays. Very compact, 5'11", 215, and just overall really just good feel in space. I think he could bring you scheme versatility, both in gap and zone schemes. I wish he was a little just like purely stronger as a player, as a 215-pound running back. And I do think the pass blocking is a little to be desired. But there's definitely things to like about him. 12, I have DJ Giddens. Really another fluid, smooth runner. Another one, really good vision and footwork. I think he changes direction well. He's 6'1", 210, so he is on the bigger side, but I think he is able to make people miss in space. He's another one I kind of wish would run with a little more physicality in general. His catching ability was really just questionable this season. Some bad drops, and his blocking also needs work. And I would note too, I do believe he was an academic blue shirt, which basically meant he didn't meet academic standards at the beginning of his football career as he was being recruited. So that is a question, and I'm not going to speculate on anything, but just I think something worth noting. Cam Scadaboo, who's become a darling in the draft community for many people. Listen, you saw it in the playoff and you saw it all year. He is just your downhill, down and dirty running back. He is willing to just mow you down, not afraid of physicality at all. That said, he does flash, I think, some pretty neat short area quickness and bursts. And his ability in the passing game is actually pretty impressive. He had 522 yards after the catch this year. So really an actually pretty dynamic receiving option. Big thing with him is ball security, just way too many fumbles if he is going to be any kind of feature back. And he also he's not overly explosive, doesn't really have that second gear. So, those are issues, but your typical power back that another one you'd love to have in like goal line, short down situations. 14 is the polarizing Diller Sampson. I think he breaks tackles really well, fairly twitchy guy. I think he understands angles really well. That's something you see in his running style, and also has really good vision. He's another one, and you're going to hear with a lot of these guys, ball security is a problem for him as well. Also dealt with a hamstring injury this year. It wasn't anything too serious, but lingering hamstring problems, I think, are something to be concerned about with running backs. 15, Khalil Mullings, guy we haven't talked about yet. Dude is just big, and he plays like it. He is a former linebacker, and I think that shows in his ability to really just attack holes that he sees and run through them with physicality. Pretty underrated.
Can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah.
I thought you were about to move to Smith. But one thing to note about Khalil Mullings is exactly what Anthony said. He used to play linebacker.
Yep.
So what you're going to see on a big board is there's a running back board. And I think where Mullings is correct on the running back board. But then he's probably going to get drafted higher than this because he can instantly play special teams because of his past experience as a linebacker. So rate him as a running back. He's probably higher on the big board because he's going to be able to play special teams and contribute on a 53-man roster, possibly more than some of the running backs ahead of him because they may not have the special teams experience that Mullings provides. And sorry, I thought you were done with him, but carry on.
No, it's okay, no doubt. And I think we are at this point in my rankings. We're crossing now, I think, into the guys I would say are 5th round grades. But you're right. Like he's a guy he's going to be in the Senior Bowl this year. Definitely a guy that can test really well, and if he can show off that good lateral quickness for a guy his size, definitely somebody that can climb up running back boards. Brashard Smith, the complete opposite of Khalil Mullings, basically. Yep. He is undersized, 5'10", 196 pounds, but man, is he fast. Man, does he have great acceleration. Super valuable as a receiver. And I think his vision and IQ are assets for him as well. He has good contact balance, but he's 196 pounds. He's not going to be taking a lot of hits, being able to be a physical lead back kind of guy, but definitely an explosive change of pace guy, I think, in an NFL offense that gives you receiver value as well. Jordan James out of Oregon. He's your pretty stereotypical one-cut guy. He's able to make a cut, accelerate really well, plays through contact really well, and he's not afraid of physicality. He's 5'10", 205, so he's not the most imposing person, but he is, again, not afraid of that physicality. I don't think he's overly twitchy. He doesn't have that elite change of direction, and he's not really like a home run hitter kind of back. So he's limited in that area, and I don't think he's a huge receiver option as well. But definitely somebody that could work again in that one cut style of offense. Jarquez Hunter that Brian talked about. Really solid contact balance, plays with a low center of gravity. I have him at 5'10", 209. He was the focal point of the Auburn offense. Really, if he wasn't playing well, Auburn was not playing well. Makes cuts really well, shows that lateral agility, and he's also played in multiple offenses, so he brings you scheme versatility, I think, at the next level. The vision is inconsistent and needs work. I don't think he's patient enough as a runner. I wrote down, it kind of reminds me of like a Jerome Ford kind of guy. And then we have Jaden Blue, who you would have seen score 2 touchdowns yesterday against Ohio State. And they were both receiving touchdowns on wheel routes. He is one of the best receiving backs in this class. Soft hands, able to get out in space and make catches. As a runner, I think he shows the ability to hit that second gear. He is fast. He has good contact balance, I think, as well. I wish he was a little more just elusive as a runner. He's fast, but he's not really nimble. Another one with ball security issues. And he also, I believe, had ankle injury concerns as well this season, so something to potentially monitor. I'd also be curious what he's going to weigh in at. Texas has him listed at 200. I don't think I believe them. My guess is he's closer to like 190, 195, which again is fine, but I'm just not the biggest fan of running backs under 200 pounds in general. So, so there you go.
Okay. So I think there's 2 players I want to point out, and the first is Jaden Blue, because when we covered him on a podcast last time with Jake and Josh, literally he caught like a touchdown in the corner of the end zone that was like impressive. I don't remember the opponent, but it was to the right pylon. Like I remember, like it was a heck of a catch. So there's definitely some receiving chops there. He's done it more than once, and basically whenever we cover him on a podcast, he scores a touchdown that weekend. It's just a thing. The other player is Brashard Smith from SMU. It should be pointed out that Smith was a wide receiver last season, correct?
Mm-hmm. At Miami, yes.
At Miami, yeah.
So even though they are completely different body types, so Tyrone Tracy on the New York Giants, similar. He was wide receiver at Purdue, switched to running back, and now he's RB1 in New York. But Tracy's big. Smith is he's built like a slot wide receiver.
He kind of was at Miami,
more or less. So pay attention to a team that needs a pass receiving running back, and Anthony pointed that out with Smith. But I think Smith and Blue, if a team needs a running back that can catch, or the offensive coordinator likes throwing to running backs, those are two names that I would definitely watch. Okay, so now we're looking for Brian's board. And Brian, we ended at 15. Yeah. So can you go through your 16 through 27 players, please?
Okay. Yeah, so I think I just talked about him, Brashard Smith, 5'10", 186. You know, he was a wide receiver his whole 4 years, I think it was, at Miami. And then SMU converted him. Yeah, so he even kind of has kind of a wide receiver body when you watch him run, you know, 5'10", 186, like we said. But it did surprise me, though, when I watched him was for his size, the contact balance is really good. You know, again, not a huge guy, of course, under 200 pounds, but, you know, his contact balance and then even his power when he's running, he runs angry. You know, he's trying to run guys over. You know, you see him sometimes running over DBs and even some college linebackers. I mean, they're college linebacker, NFL guys, but still, it's still impressive for a former wide receiver, a guy who was just wide receiver just last year, to run with that much power, run with, you know, that contact balance, stuff like that. Again, like we said, really good receiver of the backfield, kind of run routes. You can use him as a gadget player. You know, you can run him orbit motions and all kinds of crazy. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with him. If I remember right, he has some return experience as well. Just explosive, fast guy. And they kind of covered him as well. Also, earlier was Cam Scatabo. He's really fun watch. Really fun running back to watch. College running back. I think, again, like his NFL upside is kind of somewhat limited just because his skill set's somewhat limited. But just a fun dude to watch. Power, will run you over. You know, there's that saying, a bowling ball with knives. You know, he's just trying to run in there, just trying to run everybody over. Not really explosive. His speed is kind of okay. But just a dude he'll do anything, whatever you need him to do, whatever you ask him to do, he will do it. And he will do it to the best of his ability. He'll do it 150%. It's always a useful guy for NFL. Probably like a number 2 type back, probably in the NFL, I think. Khalil Mullings, again, another guy I like. We talked, Anthony obviously mentioned him earlier as well. You know, a former linebacker. He just converted in 2022, I think it was. And even 2022, he barely played. And then 2023, he kind of played a little bit. And then, of course, this year, he kind of took off. I think, how do I put it? He's got pretty good explosiveness, I think. Not great or amazing, but of course, for how big he is, I think his explosiveness is pretty impressive. You know, 6'2", 233, so a big guy. You know, as a receiver, it's kind of I don't know, unknown. The blocking kind of unknown a bit. But yeah, as a running, he's really good. I think, again, he's a guy who still has the arrow is kind of pointing up for him, so to speak, just because, you know, he didn't play very much running back even up until this year. So I think there's still upside in there. Could still improve a lot. Again, got some power. He's got actually pretty good, really good vision too. Actually, I was surprised by his vision for a former linebacker. And then Micah Bernard is a guy I like a lot coming out of Utah. He's a little bit smaller. Not that small, actually, 5'11", 206, but still he's got a small, compact body, got explosiveness, got speed, probably more of a third down back in the NFL. You know, he can catch the ball in the backfield again. Blocking needs to be improved, of course. But, you know, he's not a lot of power, but he's really quick. You know, he's got some moves on him as well. Straight line speed's okay, not great, but it's decent. It's pretty decent. But I think he can be a third down back, kind of number 2 back in the NFL. Jordan James, kind of similar to Anthony as well. I think he's okay. I think he's not bad as a receiver. I value his receiving skills a little bit more than Anthony does. But I mean, otherwise, it seemed pretty similar. Not super fast, not super explosive, but pretty good skills. Probably be a number 2 back in the NFL. Phil Maffa, Clemson, just a big power dude. He do I have his official size? Yeah, 6 foot. Yeah, 6 foot 233. So he's a big dude. Run you over. Not really explosive. Not really fast. But again, he'll get you those third and shorts, those fourth and shorts. He's got some okay hands. Not much of a receiver out of the backfield outside of like dump offs and stuff like that type of stuff. Pass pro needs a bit of work though. He's got the size, of course, and the strength to do it. It just needs work. He needs to be better at it. But again, another guy I think you could put him in a committee backfield, have a speedy, type guy there taking care of your third and long stuff like that, and Phil Moffitt taking care of those short yardage first early downs and stuff like that. Jaquavius Marks, a lot of people like him. I know that. He's really good at the backfield. At Mississippi State is not this year, but the year before, obviously. He had just a ton of catches. Of course, that offense they barely on the ball. It was like 90% passes. So he's really good at the backfield. Got really good hands. He can run routes. His pass blocking needs work. He shows some flashes of being able to do it. So I think the potential is there for him to be a better pass blocker, but it's just it needs to work at it. As a running back, his vision is okay, but I think what he's going to bring most of the NFL is be a really good third down back. Can carry the ball occasionally and stuff like that. Damian Martinez, another power back, just big dude, strong dude. Just under 6 foot, 240, so really big. Actually, I think he was a little bit lighter last year when his Oregon State. I think he was in the 230s, so he might want to lose a little bit of weight because he didn't look that great this year at Miami. I think it was partially because he's one of those backs that needs a lot of carries to do his thing. He's one of those guys that needs to get into a flow. I guess, you see some backs like that he's a power back sometimes, and they need kind of get into a flow to get a rhythm going. He's one of those type of guys. So I think if you take him, you're going to want to have him get a lot of carries just because he needs to get into that flow to get going. It takes him a while to get going. Not particularly fast or explosive, but has some decent speed. For his size, he's got good speed, though. Pass pro needs a lot of work. His pass pro is not that great. His hands are okay, but not much of a receiving threat. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, the guy I liked a lot last year off his New Mexico State, I think it was, film. He really flashed that year. Last year, he had over 1,000 yards. I was watching some. It was interesting enough. I was watching another team playing Arizona, and New Mexico State, and he really flashed for me. So I watched more of his film. So another guy who's got good vision, quick, good feet. Anything else on him? My notes real quick. Just a good, solid running back, probably number 2 running back. Pass pro needs work, of course. Can catch the ball in the backfield. LaQuint Allen, I think he's kind of similar in a way to Brashard Smith in the sense of his body shape. He's kind of got that wide receiver body shape. He's got like this thin body kind of thing. But he's a really good catcher. He can catch the ball in the backfield. I think he's going to fill a somewhat similar role to Brashard Smith, to Gravis Marks, similar role in that he'll kind of be a third down back in the NFL, catch the ball in the backfield, give him some, put him in an outside zone blocking scheme where he can give him some outside runs. His pass blocking is actually pretty decent for a guy his size, for a guy who's built kind of like a running back. Do I have official numbers on him? I don't. Okay, yeah, so 6 foot, 200 pounds for him, so similar size to Brashard Smith. But yeah, I think he's a good third down back. Nate Noel, somewhat similar in the sense that he'll probably be a third down back in the NFL, but he's a shorter, kind of squattier guy. Missouri this year, he was at App State last year. He surprisingly showed at least last year at App State, he could carry the ball. He got a lot of carries at App State. But again, smaller guy, 5'10", 184 pounds, so pretty small for the NFL, but he can catch the ball backfield, like I said. He has return experience. He's fast. He's quick. He's got really good vision. For being 184 pounds, his contact balance is not bad, but again, still pretty small. Probably not going to take the pounding in the NFL like that. And then for 27, Donovan Edwards, another guy that's probably going to be like a third down back in the NFL. His vision is just not there as a runner. Really good hands though. Runs really good routes. I remember, I think last year, some people in the draft sphere, I can't remember who it was, but I even talked about him possibly moving to wide receiver in the NFL. I could see him being used as a wide receiver at times in the NFL. Just his vision as a runner is not there, but you can you throw him out there, outside zone type stuff, throw him, catch the ball in the backfield, maybe even try and see if you can use him as a returner. He's definitely got value in the NFL as like a third down back type of running back.
Cool. So I think one name that I'm always surprised, I was surprised that LeQuint Allen came out this year because it's a stacked running back class. But that's a name that I think we're going to learn more about. And I bet out of everybody that was covered, I think he's going to be drafted. My hunch, and granted, I have a Western New York bias, but my hunch is that LeQuint Allen gets drafted well ahead of where he is on everybody's running back board.
Awesome.
Right? Because I just, whenever I watch Syracuse, I saw him making play after play. Granted, that's the ACC, but yeah. So there's bias there on my behalf. But before we continue, Brian, you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of who you are and how they can find your content?
Yeah, of course, you can see me there on X or whatever, BMAFI NFL. Mentioned before, I'm also on Blue Sky, although I don't log on there as much as I probably should. I'm also there. So you can find my writing at Gridiron Heroics. I think I mentioned before, I just started putting out my final positional rankings. So my final quarterback rankings are already out, so you can check those out on Gridiron Heroics. I'm working on my running back rankings. Those should be out like probably Monday. And then, of course, wide receiver rankings will be out after that and so on and so forth. Like I said, you always talk to me on X. I try and post clips here and there when I can of prospects. And then also I usually write for the Cheesehead TV Draft Guide. So once that comes out in March-ish, you should see articles in there. And then I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Anthony.
Yep. You can find me on X at Anthony_Russo97. Constantly tweeting about NFL draft stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So my name's Jim. You can find me on X at NFL Draft Fanatic. No I in Fanatic. And it's the same channel name on YouTube and X. You can also find me on Discord. And on Discord, I'm verifying I'm at jimwdraftprofessor.com. So you can find me on Draft Discord as well. So this channel has daily draft content. Draft Professor has at least 25 people that put out content. Some of those 25 people will include Jake Robertson, who you see in the comments, Ryan Sparks, who you see in the comments. They are among the people, among those 25 that help us put out literally a podcast on the draft every day. So to give you an idea as to what's coming up on today's Saturday, on Monday, Jake and Josh are going to be covering some wide receivers. It's a combination of high deviation wide receivers. And what we mean by high deviation is when two people evaluated them, like Anthony and Brian just went through, if they're far apart, we're going to dive deeper, right? So examples of players that they're going to be talking about will include Isaiah Bond and Luther Burden. And then there's going to be a bunch of Senior Bowl wide receivers mixed in. Tuesday, there's a defensive back episode. So you'll see Parker, Blake, Bill Sparks talking about DBs. Wednesday, you will see Randall and Jacob doing tight end scouting reports, as well as a tight end big board. So very similar to how we did a big board for running backs. We're going to do some tight end scouting reports and then close it out with a tight end big board. Thursdays, Owen and Newt are doing interior offensive line rankings. We have a Chicago Bears podcaster coming on and a New York Jets podcaster coming on to show us their interior offensive line big boards as well. Fridays, you'll see Anthony doing some Senior Bowl coverage with Bill Sparks. And then Saturday next week, Brian and Anthony should be back at the same time. And I think next week, we haven't fully talked about it, but we might be just handicapping the quarterback offseason. So covering like free agent quarterbacks or quarterback trade targets and kind of ranking them on a board. But we have to talk about that when the podcast is over. But again, daily draft content. The whole vision of the channel is to, instead of being on Twitter texting everything, let's bring those conversations into a podcast, engage our followers, and grow from there. So we look forward to seeing all of you on a podcast again soon. But before we close off, Anthony, if you had to pick any running back that we've talked about and say there's a scheme fit for an offensive coordinator, and if you can make a multiple choice, but like if you had to pick like a couple of guys that are scheme fits for a couple of specific teams or offenses, are there any guys that jump out to you?
Let me think. I think Caleb Johnson to the Vikings is one that comes to mind. I think, let's see here. I think Monangai, the problem, a lot of teams that, I'm trying to think of teams that aren't looking for a head coach or a play caller that who's a running back. Because I've got a lot of teams. I think Dallas, if they stick with McCarthy, which God knows at this point, but if Dallas keeps McCarthy, I do think a Nick Singleton kind of player fits that. Somebody who can give you pass catching out of the backfield, but can also be that physical, athletic back. I think, the Chiefs could potentially want a guy. I think like a RJ Harvey, who could maybe be more of a change of pace guy next to Isaiah Pacheco. That's potentially a fit as well for them.
Okay. That was pretty good for being put on the spot to come up with 3 examples. Like you filibustered long enough for Brian to think about his answer to the same question.
That was the goal.
So what do you think, Brian, if you had to pick some scheme fits?
Oh, gosh. I can't think of any specific teams. Yeah, I can't think of any specific teams. I mean, I think there's a lot of talk about Dallas grabbing Gene T, but that's I don't know if it's really per se a scheme fit. But I think guys, for example, like in a Martin Hampton would have fit really good in the gap power scheme. RJ Harvey would fit good in a zone scheme, especially like outside zone. If they needed him, RJ Harvey would probably fit good in Green Bay, but they don't need it back. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. Tajh Brooks would be good in the gap scheme as well.
Okay. If you had to pick a Shanahan running back, so like if you had to think of somebody like when Garendo went to the 49ers last year, I think that was one that I think a lot of people saw coming, and I immediately grabbed Garendo on my dynasty teams immediately. So If you had to think of a Shanahan running back on this list, could you think of one?
Shanahan back. I don't know.
See, I would think like Brashard Smith. That was what I was thinking. Like, give Shanahan a running back he can throw to.
Yeah, but I don't think they like guys that are like just third down backs.
Got it.
I would say my guy Mario Anderson could fit that role. He is a guy that can catch out of the backfield, but also still give you that ability to run
good
through,
vision,
holes and have the vision.
Maybe, yeah.
Right. And then Brian has a really good draft database. Like a lot of us at the Draft Professor go to Brian to get some of our measurements and player names. So Targi Lamson was a new name for me. So Brian, do you have any comment or reply back to Ryan? Do you know who that is?
Not offhand, no. Probably an FCS guy, I would assume, but I'd have to look into it.
Okay. So, yeah, so Ryan Sparks, congratulations for stumping us. Great job. Great job. But why don't we close down this podcast? It's been 75 minutes. So on behalf of the 25 Podcasts with the Draft Professor, give at BMafi NFL a follow. Give at Anthony_Russo97 a follow, at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic a follow. We're all on X, daily draft content. On behalf of everybody, thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday morning, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. Please follow the Draft Professor on YouTube, X, and Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. If you have a moment, try using some of the Draft Professor mock draft functionality, including a first-round challenge, a second-round challenge, rank players, and draft a team. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on our daily draft podcast tomorrow.